The famine that struck ancient Egypt functioned as a catalyst for a total macroeconomic monopoly. By the end of the crisis, the price of survival had become the surrender of an entire nation's autonomy. During a severe global supply chain crisis, the state gained control of the only essential resource, food. This grain was then used as leverage to execute a complete wealth transfer. These models reflect the reality of the crisis. Grain was consolidated in government storehouses, while the markets of Canaan and Egypt sat empty. With the food supply centralized, the private economy ceased to function. This is a study in disaster capitalism, the utilization of a major catastrophe to implement radical economic restructuring that a population would never accept under normal conditions. By controlling the calories, the state controlled the people. This was not a relief program. It was a mechanism for the creation of an absolute, centralized power. While the general public faced starvation, Joseph secured a safe haven for his own family. He used his administrative authority to settle them in Goshen, a prime agricultural region supported by state resources. Jacob is brought before the man who now holds the title to his family's survival. Standing before an absolute monarch, the 130-year-old patriarch dismisses his own life as few and evil, a blunt assessment delivered to the sovereign who was currently purchasing the world. This family remained insulated from the market crash. While the Egyptian public surrendered their assets for bread, Joseph's relatives were fed and protected on government-guaranteed land. In any large-scale wealth transfer, political insiders secure their own assets and safe havens before the broader economic squeeze begins. The state first drains the nation's currency. Joseph collects silver in Egypt and Canaan for grain until liquidity reaches zero. With the money supply exhausted, the market freezes. Citizens have no cash left for food, forcing them to offer remaining capital to the state. This leads to phase 2, asset seizure. To avoid starvation, the people trade their horses, their flocks, and their cattle. The state absorbs the nation's livestock in exchange for a single year of food. In one fiscal year, the means of production for the entire country are repossessed by the central government. By stripping away both cash and physical assets, the state effectively dismantled the ability of the middle class to ever generate future wealth independently. By year 3, the citizens have no money and no cattle. They are left with only 2 remaining assets, their land and their own labor. This represents the final real estate squeeze. Joseph purchases the entire landmass of Egypt for the crown, transforming individual holdings into a monolithic state monopoly. Once seized, the population is forcibly relocated from ancestral farms into concentrated urban centers, completing their transition to dependent serfs. A single group remains exempt from this seizure. The institutional priests keep their land because they receive a direct food allowance from Pharaoh, a state subsidy that ensures the ruling class remains comfortable while the public economy is dismantled. True systemic monopolies are rarely absolute. They preserve specific exemptions to keep the religious and institutional elite complicit. The state then codifies the new order. Joseph provides seed for the newly seized fields, but he institutes a permanent 20% tax on every future harvest, payable to Pharaoh in perpetuity. With their money, their livestock, and their land gone, the population arrives at a startling conclusion. They thank Joseph for the arrangement, telling him, "Thou hast saved our lives." This illustrates a terrifying dynamic. A population that has been systematically stripped of its autonomy now expresses gratitude to the man who holds the title to their lives. The survivors are conditioned to see their subjugation as a rescue. The ultimate victory of a monopoly is achieved when the victims are convinced to be grateful for the transaction that dispossessed them. While the Egyptian public lived under a permanent tax, the Israelites of Goshen continued to thrive. They grew and multiplied on the best land in the country, entirely removed from the system Joseph built for the locals. 17 years later, as Jacob faces death, he makes a final demand. Despite the wealth his family acquired in Egypt, he refuses to be buried within the system his son engineered. He forces Joseph to perform a solemn oath, placing a hand under his thigh to swear that his body will be returned to Canaan. Jacob's final act is an extraction, a refusal to remain part of the Egyptian state, even in death. When a crisis hits, those who control the bread control the world. In any era, the terms of a survival package are rarely written in the favor of the survivor.